The treatment's done.
Yes.
So I can crack on and get back to normal again, but actually the phase afterwards is really, is really difficult.
It was intended to be a regular royal event, with everyone smiling for the cameras, the children waving gently, and the monarchy reminding the world that it still stands tall. But on this particular day, something seemed amiss. The atmosphere around the royal family felt tense. Eyes darted, smiles wavered. Princess Charlotte stood in the heart of it all, plainly uneasy. Her typically dazzling countenance darkened with worry. The event was so quick that most missed it, until royal watchers began reviewing the film. Queen Camilla made a casual comment. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and Charlotte's stance tensed. Just seconds later, Catherine, Princess of Wales, knelt down to whisper something to her daughter. Charlotte nodded hastily, blinking back what appeared to be tears. That one conversation, captured by a keen-eyed videographer and then examined by body language specialists and experienced lip readers, sparked the floodgates. And what came out was a flood of questions, theories, and eventually a furious clash behind the royal gates. According to sources close to Kensington Palace, what Catherine learnt in the hours following the tragedy destroyed her long-standing attempts to maintain peace. For years, she has tolerated Camilla's subtle undermining, backhanded insults, and silent attempts to undermine Diana's reputation while raising her own. But when the attention switched to Charlotte, her only daughter, something within the future queen broke. It wasn't simply palace politics anymore. This was not about titles, tiaras, or media coverage. This was personal. Insiders claim Catherine's wrath behind closed doors was unlike anything the staff had ever seen from the normally placid princess. What caused it was more than just one vicious remark. It was the result of years of passive-aggressive barbs, veiled superiority, and a worrying pattern of conduct against the Wales family's younger members. But Camilla, ever the palace survivor, refused to back down. She laughed it off. She dismissed it as misinterpreted, and with King Charles solidly at her side, the palace spin machine went into overdrive. What they didn't expect was the hurricane that followed. From Charlotte's anguish to Catherine's wrath, from William's untenable situation to the public's loud outrage, what transpired that day highlighted profound flaws in the royal family's basic basis. And it all started with a daughter's quiet scream and a mother who refused to remain silent any longer. The royal family convened at Windsor on an uncommonly sunny spring afternoon for what was intended to be a light-hearted public engagement, the inauguration of a charity garden to promote togetherness and joy. The journalists had been pre-briefed, photographers were in place. The royal youngsters were anticipated to continue to wow the cameras. But as soon as Princess Charlotte got out of the vehicle, something seemed strange. She squeezed her mother's hand a bit tighter than normal. Her usual confident, cocky smile was gone. Prince George sent her a strange look, as if understanding her uneasiness, while Louis, as vivacious as usual, dashed ahead toward the floral arrangement. Catherine, ever poised, bent softly alongside Charlotte and whispered something into her ear, stroking a strand of hair off her face. However, even in those initial few seconds, the Princess of Wales was clearly disturbed. The clip from that time was then examined by social media sleuths, lip readers, and royal pundits. But it was what happened seconds later that actually altered the mood of the day. Queen Camilla, traveling slightly behind King Charles, came up with the family and approached the youngsters. At first, her expression appeared neutral, but as she bent down toward Charlotte, spectators saw an unusual conversation that lasted only 5 seconds. Camilla whispered something beneath her breath. Charlotte's shoulders tightened and her head dipped downward. The tiny princess then took a small step behind her mother's leg, as if by reflex. It was subtle. Blink and you'll miss it. However, Catherine did not miss it. Neither did the cameras. Without the high-definition film taken by a Sky News broadcast camera operator stationed nearby, the episode might have gone unreported, dismissed as a moment of infantile timidity. As the royal family went on, a zoomed-in photo captured Camilla and Charlotte whispering, followed by a clear shift in the child's mood. Body language specialists were quick to respond. "She looked intimidated," said one expert during a royal piece on GB News. "That wasn't just fun taunting, that was a power move." And Charlotte, being young, naturally retreated. Social media erupted. Hashtags such as #ProtectCharlotte and #QueenOfMean started trending. Some assumed that Camilla had urged Charlotte to stand up straight or stop pouting, while others imagined a more cutting comment regarding Charlotte's conduct at previous gatherings. Whatever it was, the online consensus was clear. It did not appear to be grandmotherly devotion. But as the internet discussed the clip, something considerably more serious was taking place behind closed doors. Just hours after the incident, royal workers at Kensington Palace reported seeing a clearly frightened Catherine pacing the corridor of her private house. According to an aide who subsequently remarked privately to a well-connected royal source, Catherine was absolutely livid but controlled, like a mother lion waiting to strike. She had been patient for years, the insider said. She put up with the remarks, the subtle jabs, and the eye rolls Camilla believed no one noticed. But when it came to Charlotte and her child's mental well-being, that was the line, and Camilla crossed it. Later that evening, Catherine allegedly asked for a secret meeting with King Charles. What was intended to be a brief talk developed into a 90-minute meeting behind heavy Windsor Castle doors, with loud voices reported from staff quarters. Everyone was wondering not just what Camilla had said, but also why she had said it. Was it intentional? Was it a slip? Or was it something more? A deliberate moment of control in an environment where public hierarchy takes precedence over familial ties. By the next morning, palace officials had been directed to clarify the narrative. A prepared press statement was sent, emphasizing the joyous event and containing chosen images of Charlotte looking poised. But the harm was already done, because this wasn't simply a PR gaffe. This was the spark that ignited the fuse, and Catherine, the calm, collected, diplomatic Catherine, was done waiting. To the general public, Queen Camilla has spent years promoting the image of the supporting royal spouse, the smiling consort who stands behind King Charles. Behind the royal gates, individuals closest to the Wales family tell a different narrative, a story of subtle animosity, of skillfully disguised comments. Most alarming is a long-running trend in which Camilla's anger has silently spread to her children as well as Catherine. According to sources close to the royal household, it began softly. A caustic remark here, a scoff there. Camilla reportedly remarked at a private Christmas party at Sandringham 2 years ago that George's mini monarch routine was getting out of hand after the young prince proudly gave a brief speech in front of the family. It was intended to be a source of encouragement for the future monarch, but Camilla, allegedly rolling her eyes, murmured just loud enough for others to hear, "Well, someone's been watching too much The Crown." The room became quiet, and it did not end there. Camilla is believed to have admonished Princess Charlotte for speaking too loudly during a croquet game at another private royal picnic. According to many accounts, the Queen consort referred to her as bossy, then joked, "She's got that Middleton fire, doesn't she?" The inference was clear. Charlotte's behavior was unworthy of a Windsor and maybe too representative of her commoner background. It was a shot at both Charlotte and her mother. Prince Louis has not been spared either. After his light-hearted antics at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee balcony appearance went viral, Camilla allegedly commented behind closed doors that Louis was a walking PR disaster waiting to happen. On their own, these instances may be disregarded as generational misunderstanding or dry humor. However, when taken together, they suggest something more sinister, a pattern of undermining, particularly with the Wales children and their public reputation. And here's where the stakes rise. Catherine has spent over a decade meticulously molding her children's public image. She is passionately protective of their privacy, confidence, and ability to navigate royal life without becoming consumed by it. Every public presence is measured. Each image is purposeful. Camilla isn't simply making jokes when she chips away at it, even if it's with minor remarks. She is upending the very foundation Kate has worked so hard to establish. Some royal observers claim it is envy. After all, public opinion polls consistently show Catherine, and even her children, Far ahead of Camilla in popularity, Charlotte is widely regarded as Diana's spiritual granddaughter, possessing charm, strength, and a spark that the public adores. George bears the burden of monarchy with a maturity that astounds royal insiders. Louis, crazy as he may be, is adored for his honesty. Camilla, on the other hand, has spent decades fighting a tidal wave of popular suspicion, only to lose. However, some believe it is about power. Camilla, although becoming queen, still struggles with insecurity. As Charles ages and William's rule draws closer, the attention will unavoidably change. And in that limelight stand three children, who are not just royal successors, but also cultural superstars in the making. To a mother who once fought tooth and nail to be accepted by the firm, maybe witnessing Kate's children effortlessly grab the world's attention is a difficult pill to take, and thus the tension rises, silent, cumulative, toxic, until one day, a whispered statement to Charlotte brings everything to the forefront, and Catherine, having experienced years of smirks and subtle slights, suddenly sees the pattern for what it is. This was more than simply one awful moment. It was a protracted and highly personal conflict. Catherine's flawless elegance conceals a powerful maternal instinct that the public seldom sees, but insiders know all too well. And in the hours after the event at Windsor, that instinct erupted. After coming home to Adelaide Cottage, Catherine allegedly spent the evening with Princess Charlotte. Employees were advised not to disturb them. According to one assistant, Charlotte had become abnormally quiet, a far cry from her generally confident, talkative personality. Something had been said to her that she did not entirely get, but she felt it, and it hurts. Catherine, distraught yet controlled, carefully urged her daughter to reveal the information. What she heard confirmed her worst fears. Camilla's conduct toward her children had progressed beyond private insults and into direct, intimate territory. The Princess of Wales, who was frequently complimented for her prudence and diplomacy, had now reached her breaking point. The next morning, a direct communication was delivered from Kensington Palace to Buckingham Palace. Catherine desired a private meeting with Camilla, rather than with King Charles or a senior assistant. Alone. There are no intermediates, there is no personnel. Camilla, apparently taken off guard, agreed to a closed-door meeting at Clarence House. Those close to the Queen Consort said she expected a courteous talk, maybe an apology from Catherine for provoking a public uproar. She had no idea what was coming. What happened in that drawing room has sparked much conjecture, but two distinct royal insiders claim Catherine did not raise her voice once. Instead, she gave what one advisor described as the most calculated, composed confrontation the royal family has seen since Diana demanded her freedom. Catherine set forth a timeline, the years of Camilla's subtle jabs, the period she bore in quiet, the insults directed at her parenting, and, most recently, the statement to Charlotte. Then she uttered something that stung more deeply than any outburst. To keep the peace, I held my tongue, but not with my daughter. Camilla, caught off guard, attempted to downplay the situation, claiming it was a misunderstanding. She said it was an attempt at correction, that she was assisting Charlotte with her public behavior, but Catherine wouldn't have it. She said it clearly, a source claimed. Charlotte is her kid, not Camilla's to chastise, humiliate, or correct, period. What surprised spectators the most was not the encounter itself, but the shift in power relations it indicated. Camilla had the upper hand for years, as she was senior in rank, elder in age, and received unwavering backing from King Charles. However, in that moment, the future queen remained firm as a mother rather than a monarch. Camilla, cornered, startled, and openly defensive, found herself on the losing end for the first time in a long while. After the meeting, Catherine returned to Kensington Palace in solitude. She did not debrief her employees. She did not call William. She merely sat in her own drawing room, looking out the window with Charlotte's tiny sweater folded in her lap. This was about more than simply one statement. This was about preserving the future generation, drawing a line in the sand. Everything changed after that, because while Catherine had remained quiet for years, Camilla failed to notice this. She did not pick a battle with a duchess. She picked a quarrel with her mother. When King Charles learned about Catherine's secret fight with Camilla, the dust had scarcely cleared. The Queen Consort's version of the story came first, delivered predictably over tea with carefully chosen words like concern, discipline, and misinterpretation. According to palace insiders, Camilla painted herself as the victim of a gross overreaction, a well-meaning grandmother who had simply tried to offer guidance, only to be met with disproportionate rage from a stressed-out Princess of Wales. Charles, as usual, did not hesitate. He selected Camilla. Without seeking to hear Catherine's side directly, the king allegedly directed top officials to manage the situation quietly and avoid stoking unnecessary pressure. In other words, sweep it under the rug, control the story, protect the crown. Most importantly, safeguard Camilla. But Charles failed to recognize that this was not your average tabloid rumor or press leak. This was emotional dynamite that was already ticking, and the royal spin machine arrived far too late. Behind closed doors, public relations advisors began formulating statements. Palace personnel received carefully prepared talking points. Suddenly, there was a new angle, one that gradually, almost subtly, transferred blame to Princess Charlotte herself. Leaked reports said that Charlotte was tired, moody, or acting up during the Windsor event. A royal source told one newspaper that Camilla had just reminded the young princess to stand straight like a proper royal. Another insider said that Catherine was overly sensitive and still adjusting to her expanded role. It was the oldest tactic in the book: reframe, deflect, and divert. But this time, the people didn't believe it. Royal observers instantly noted the change. The subtle insinuations regarding Charlotte's behavior elicited a furious outcry online. Parents, particularly moms, exploded with indignation. "They're gaslighting a child," one popular tweet said. "She's 8, not a threat to the monarchy." For days, social media was dominated by hashtags like #StandWithCharlotte and #TeamKate. Meanwhile, Catherine stayed mute, deliberately so. No statements, no clarifications, no counterleaks. Her Kensington Palace crew did not deny the tension. Rather, they refused to fuel it. Catherine knew something that Charles and Camilla did not. In the age of social media, silence may speak words. The general population reads between the lines. Even inside the royal gates, the reaction was split. Younger staff members, particularly those close to William and Kate, were allegedly disgusted by the attempt to defame Charlotte. Several aides admitted that the approach backfired badly, alienating the people while also exposing internal divisions within the monarchy. For years, the palace followed an unspoken rule: allegiance to the king comes first, even at the price of truth. However, when Catherine took on her future position as queen and her children grew into theirs, the relationship shifted. Charles may be king today. However, everyone is aware of who the people believe will lead the monarchy into the future. When the future is openly damaged in order to safeguard the past, people take note. Charles's decision to choose Camilla over Catherine did more than only alienate his daughter-in-law. Kate had long suspected that when it comes to maintaining his heritage, his devotion is to his wife rather than his family. And as the palace spin proceeded behind the scenes, the schism only widened. Because this wasn't just a mistake, it was a decision. Catherine would never forget this. It was too late when the palace's damage control staff started sending soft denial news leaks. The populace had picked a side, and it was not the king's. Thousands of tweets defending Princess Charlotte were shared across social media platforms by moms, teachers, and even former royal personnel. Threads revealed Camilla's previous snubs to the Wales children. Footage from royal occasions was reviewed and studied frame by frame. In one now viral video, Camilla appears to gently move Charlotte aside during a photo shoot, her smile taut and her hands hard. Another showed Camilla dismissing a question posed by the little princess as William waited patiently for a response. These previously ignored events now took on a new significance, and the internet was merciless. Newspapers hurried to cover the outcry. The British morning talk programs questioned Camilla's actions, while American networks lauded Catherine's grace under pressure. Even The Times ran a headline that sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace: Queen Consort versus Future Queen, a palace Cold War. Despite this, Catherine remained silent. She gave no reaction, No press briefings. There were no sources close to the princess. Instead, she took a more dramatic step than a statement. She went public. Catherine went to a charity function for children's mental health by herself, just 3 days after the Windsor incident. Her entrance was unannounced. There was no William, no children, and no royal entourage. She wore a modest navy blue outfit, no tiara, there's no ornate coat. Her hair was pulled back. Most noticeably, no grin. Each step was deliberate. She strolled by reporters without speaking. She shook hands with the charity's volunteers. She sat with the children and listened quietly. And when a small girl no older than Charlotte handed her a painting, Catherine took a deep breath, smiled softly, and muttered, "Thank you." That single moment caught on video became the image of the week. It spread like a wildfire. Commenters nicknamed it the princess's quiet protest. It wasn't simply a photo opportunity, it was a message. Catherine would not be silenced, controlled, or forced to grovel, especially not with her children. While Catherine made her position known, another individual stayed ominously silent, Prince William. According to insiders, he was torn in half. He was raised in a realm of royal duty, schooled from childhood to respect authority, and is now stuck between two great forces, his father and wife. He had been briefed on the occurrence. He'd seen the clip. Most importantly, he had seen Charlotte's expression that night when she questioned him quietly, "Did I do anything wrong?" It broke him. Nonetheless, William was wary. He didn't rush to choose sides publicly. His decision came days later during a Commonwealth event. As the family prepared for the ceremonial parade, Camilla stretched out to stand beside him, as is customary. In a modest motion that only seasoned royal observers saw, William stepped aside and took position next to Catherine. Not as husband and wife, but as a unified front. Cameras flashed, analysts argued, but one headline summed up the occasion best: "The future king has spoken." With his feet. Camilla was said to be furious behind closed doors. Charles said nothing. However, the message was clearly communicated across the monarchy and media. William had selected his queen, and that wasn't the person seated on the throne. Catherine has been the epitome of royal restraint for many years, remaining serene, gracious, and diplomatic at all times. Behind every peaceful smile is a mother's heart. When the heart is injured by the sight of a sobbing kid, something basic shifts. Camilla underestimated it. She may have survived decades of scandal, earned her crown via strategic positioning, and secured King Charles's unflinching allegiance. Camilla, however, crossed a boundary that she will never be able to undo by attacking Princess Charlotte, even with what she may have discounted as a passing comment, because the public never forgets a child's tears, and they will not forgive a queen who smirks at them. Catherine's stillness was deafening in a castle where quiet may be more powerful than words. Her composed demeanor, steadfast look, and subtle resistance accomplished more than any declaration could. She reminded the world and the crown that her authority is not derived from convention. It comes from humans. People are watching. Camilla's mistake did more than simply shake a child's trust. It caused a chain reaction, exposing significant flaws in the House of Windsor's most vulnerable connections. It put Charles's allegiance under the scrutiny. It prompted William to finally take a stand. Most crucially, it transformed Catherine's public image, not only as a future queen, but as a mother who will defend her children at any cost, even if it means shaking the castle to its foundations. Because this was neither a contrived play or a media-driven conflict. This was genuine. It was raw, and that was the first time the crown's future collided with its present. In Windsor's silent corridors, staff are whispering more cautiously. Appearances are inspected with fresh zeal. And for the first time in years, Queen Camilla is no longer untouchable. She poked the lioness. The lioness roared. What happens next might very well determine the monarchy's future, not via crowns, titles, or formality, but through the eyes of a young child and her mother who refused to allow her to stay silent.